I'm happy to be joined now by a real journalist, Joe Sonka, formerly of Insider Louisville, now with the Louisville Courier-Journal. First of all, Joe, congrats on the new gig, and thanks for being here with us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right, so this is turning out to be like the craziest political year maybe ever in Kentucky and in the nation, so we've got a lot to get to. First up, Senator Mitch McConnell continues to make news ahead of his re-election campaign. He's found himself on the defensive about a lot of issues, including gun control, election security, whether he cares about Kentucky minors. Do any of these issues help to make him more vulnerable next year?
There are certainly lots of issues. There are issues with the miners who are protesting in Harlan County. There are issues with election security. You have Democrats calling him Moscow Mitch because he's blocking bills that the House has passed that would work to secure America's election from foreign attacks. And then you have the gun issue where we've had three mass gun massacres in the month of August. And there's legislation in the House that has passed the House that is sitting inactive on the Senate floor because Mitch McConnell will not bring it to a vote. Now, the Senate comes back into session next week, and maybe Mitch McConnell will bring that to a vote. But it looks like he's really leaving that issue up to President Trump and saying if President Trump decides that he will support a bill, then he will allow it to proceed forward.
All right, so let's stay with this 2020 race. Now, we heard from Matt Jones, formerly of this show, last week about exploring his options for a run against McConnell. What are your thoughts on where Matt stands and how things are shaping up for the Democrats as a whole?
Well, it looks like a lot of Democrats, including Matt Jones, are kind of waiting to decide until after the governor's race. You have Rocky Adkins, who's waiting until after the election to decide whether he will run. You have Matt Jones deciding that. It's kind of a holding pattern on the Democratic side. Well, Amy McGrath continues to raise lots and lots of money and put ads on the air. She and McConnell already have ads on the air, and we're about 14 months away from this election. So put that on top of all the governors, the ads in the governor's race. We're going to have nonstop political ads over the next 2 months at least.
Does the fact that McGrath is already in the race and raising a bunch of money, is that give the other guys a huge disadvantage?
Oh, yeah, it definitely gives them a huge disadvantage. She could have upwards of $10 million by November just sitting in her war chest, whereas Matt Jones and Rocky Adkins or Charles Booker, they would have to really start from scratch in a lot of ways. So, and there's not a lot of ground. If they get into the race in November, it's a quick sprint to next May or the Democratic primary.
You mentioned the governor's race. Matt Bevin and Andy Beshear continue to trade jabs heading into November's election. Does it look like Beshear can come away with a win at this point?
I still think Bevin is a slight favorite. I think it's definitely going to be a close race. It's really hard to get a feeling for that race because there really hasn't been any independent polling company that's really looked at Kentucky and released public results. So at this point, we're kind of left reading the tea leaves, and Democrats have internal polls that they've released that say that Beshear has a comfortable lead, but Republicans really scoff at those results. And so I think unless there's another polling company that comes in and looks like Kentucky, it's kind of a guessing game to see what's going to happen 2 months from now.
We've been following the federal corruption trial against Kentucky businessman and former state representative Jerry Lundergan and a political consultant. What about the testimony that we've seen so far has struck you? Well,
you've seen Allison Lundergan Grimes's campaign manager, Jonathan Hurst, testify that Jerry Lundergan left a bag full of $20,000 in cash and a $25,000 check on his couch one day, basically as a way to skirt around federal campaign finance laws. That this was his way to illegally pay for campaign expenditures that are supposed to go through official channels. And then, of course, this Jerry Lundergan is Allison Lundergan Grimes' father, who had a very heavy hand in her races for both statewide office and federal office. So we're going to see that trial continue. And I'm sure Republicans are certainly loving this because anytime you talk about Democrats and corrupt payments, they want to tie that back to Andy Beshear and his former chief of staff, who was, of course, federally indicted for a bribery kickback scheme. And they would love to have his name in the media in these next couple of months.
Yeah, the ammunition, because that's pretty damaging testimony right there.
You would say it's not every day that you have bags of $20,000 in cash involved in politics. But if you go back a little further in Kentucky's history, I'm sure we've had plenty of bags of cash lying around on couches somewhere.
It has never happened to me. I'm waiting for the day.
You're in the wrong line of work.
All right, Joe. Joe Sonka from the Louisville Courier-Journal. Thank you so much. We will be tapping into your expertise in the coming weeks and months as the election continues. Thanks again.
Thanks, Mary Jo.